everybody, and welcome to Comically Incompetent. My name is Doug. This is a podcast where each week we take a movie, we take a beer, and we talk about it. So this week we're going to finally finish the 23 movie arc of the MCU with Spider-Man Far From Home. I gotta admit, I'm a little excited to be done with this. To talk about this movie with me, we have my guest Adam. Adam, how you doing?
Doing excellent. Thank you for having me on. I'm super happy to be here to kind of wrap up the this phase, I guess, of the MCU until you take a year break and then come back to it. But it's been a roller coaster, and I've had a blast, and looking forward to talk about this movie.
Yeah, because you've been doing this with me since Iron Man 2. So Incredible
Hulk.
No,
it's the Hulk. Yeah, the Hulk
Incredible Hulk.
Was that the second episode?
That was the second episode of the Marvel review series. Yeah.
When was that? When did that one? When did we air that one?
That was June.
So much has happened.
It is November.
I'm far from home. I'm not even in the same building as I was in when we did that first one.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so feels so far removed in the time that we're in. This is mid-November, and it just feels like a year ago at the least.
Yeah, that's wild. I'm having a really hard time seeing you right now. Let me see if. Okay, much better. All right, yeah, let's jump into this movie.
All right.
Oh, yes!
For our audio listeners, we just threw on a pair of glasses to look smarter than we actually are. Mm-hmm. So before we get into the movie, though, our beer this week is a pale ale from Chapman Brewing called Personal Journey.
Nice.
I thought that worked very well because Spider-Man's on his own personal journey throughout this movie. Yeah, from Chapman Brewing. We'll talk more about that at the end of the show. So I think we're not going to do a question of the week this week because I think the big question is, which is something we'll talk about at the end, where do you think this series is going to go? I mean, this is 23 movies, almost 24 if Black Widow would have come out in March as it should have. But this is a 23 movie series that has a long way to go. I mean, they've announced Shang-Chi, The Eternals, obviously Black Widow, Captain Marvel 2. I know Black Panther 2 was going to happen. I don't know where they're at with that anymore. I mean, there's a lot of this series left, so I want to talk about the end where we think, each of us, where we think this is going to kind of go at the end of this.
A lot in the works and a lot is open-ended.
Yeah, a lot is open-ended. They're ready to keep this going for, I think, as long as they can. I mean, I think this whole Marvel and cinematic universe has been so great on, everybody wins, because everyone enjoys the movies. They're good movies, and Marvel makes a fuckload of money, so I think everyone's happy in the situation, really.
Yeah, it's a win-win scenario.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a good example, I think, where they're going in this series, because this movie felt so different than, I think, a lot of the other movies. This had a very tonally different feel to it, and it didn't, to me, it doesn't feel like the rest of the MCU. I think they did a good job of, this felt very separate. This felt very, second saga, almost, of what the Marvel movies are going to be, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I felt that too. I mean, I think we kind of needed a little bit of release after Endgame just because it was so powerful, so epic, just on just this massive scale. It's everybody in the universe who's still kicking, that's getting together for one final brawl, and that we kind of just needed after that, but not quite ready to move on from the universe so fast because there's a lot to to be resolved from Endgame.
Yeah, and the way I've heard about, if you look at the MCU, Endgame was the end of the book, and this movie is the epilogue, just to kind of fill in some of those blanks that the book didn't get to. And I think this one did a good job. I mean, it explains what they called the blip of everyone coming back after being snapped away by Thanos. And they covered kind of where life is at, what people are doing, the weird things that Avengers didn't get to cover of what's life like after half the universe gets snapped away and comes back. And I think the best part of this movie was kind of filling in those gaps and filling in the information of what I don't think people I didn't leave Endgame thinking, what did the people do after they came back? But it was good to go okay, still good to know. Still good to see how that happened.
I thought it was kind of funny too, how they were talking about how a lot of the classmates aged, but everybody else didn't.
Yeah.
So they all grew up, and they're oh, now Brad's an adult. How'd that happen?
Yeah, it's a really, I think, funny way to bring that in. Yeah. I think one of my favorite things, just we're talking about the trailer real quick, because I remember when this came out, and the trailer paints Mysterio as a good guy. because that's, we'll get to it, but kind of the twist in the movie. But I know I never really read a Mysterio, like a comic, Spider-Man comic with Mysterio, but I knew Mysterio was a villain, so I was kind of confused. Like, are they changing him
He
up?
doesn't
Are they
sound
doing
like a
something
good
different?
guy.
Yeah.
And if you hear Mysterio's coming, that doesn't sound like somebody's coming to save you. It sounds like you better hide.
Yeah, exactly. So I was curious what they were going to kind of do with that, but I think they did a great job. I mean, Jake Gyllenhaal is a fantastic actor. Yeah.
Yep.
And he nailed it. I think Mysterio goes up there. You and I did Spider-Man Homecoming. I think Mysterio goes up there with Michael Keaton as a great actor, and I think Cate Blanchett of great actors playing great villains because they're such good they're on a whole different level than some of these, like, as good of an actor as like Michael B. Jordan is. Killmonger wasn't the best villain. I think these are like that. What I mean by like a tier above is, and Jake Gyllenhaal brought that to that like higher tier.
Yeah, speaking of Michael Keaton, I saw a lot of parallels between the two villains. I mean, they're both, they both don't seem inherently bad. They're not. They don't want to. They're not a Thanos. They don't want to, kill a ton of people. Yeah. They just have this weird, complex in their mind. Michael Keaton, he's literally just trying to sell weapons, and he doesn't have any beef with Spider-Man, and he's just a fly on the wall the whole time, just bugging him. He's like, leave me alone. And then this time, Jake Gyllenhaal, Mysterio just wants to be, the new Iron Man. That's his goal. He's not trying to combat anybody, but he doesn't see how he's not entirely, wholesome and good.
Yeah, I think he brought in a whole new level of like I said, he wanted to be the new Iron Man, bring in a new level of like someone who doesn't have powers. And I think that's what Spider-Man villains in this series have kind of been, is people who don't have powers, who make themselves like super on their own. Mm-hmm. And I like that element of him too. I think he brought in a lot of really cool things that, like, I see like that parallel like you were saying of these people who were so wronged that they go a little crazy and try and do right by themselves and by doing the wrong thing. Like, I think that's like for me the big parallel I see is people who were, I feel like, probably decent people before, and then were so fucked by the system that they end up just swapping over and going a little insane and going about the wrong way of getting like a revenge type of thing.
Right. Yeah, and they can't see past that. They only have, that one vision in mind, and will kind of do anything at any cost. Yeah. To achieve that.
Yeah, which talking about Mysterio, I think CGI wise, this is probably the best Marvel has ever done. I mean, Mysterio looked good.
It looked awesome. Yeah, I mean the helmet. I wore kind of a little spaceman.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Little Mysterio down here. But yeah, that was so cool. It reminded me a lot of Megamind. It was the guy, the fish guy.
Yeah.
Like that one villain, just the bubble on the head. But yeah, no, it looked fantastic. All of the elemental villains that we see, the projections looked spot on. Like the movie feels very real. I mean, there's no more cracks. Outside of the intentional ones, like when they have the projections breaking apart. But it felt very visceral and real.
Yeah, I was wondering how they were going to do, because that fishbowl helmet could have looked really bad. Mm-hmm. And I think that had a lot of potential, because one of my coworkers, who's a big like Mysterio fan, Spider-Man fan, Mysterio fan, had like this Mysterio figurine, and I remember when they announced Mysterio was going to be the villain, we were both looking at it like, how is that going to be cool? Like, how are they going to do that? Like, because a lot of stuff can look really cool in a comic, but doesn't transfer well to being physically on screen. I think they did a good job of making him look really cool on screen.
Oh, yeah. I like that his head wasn't in it when he had the helmet on, that it was just kind of this swirling vortex of, confusion. Yeah. And, I mean, the green theme, it felt very, Doctor Strange-y. And I think they tried to emulate that a lot in a lot of his projection fights. Yeah. It looked like he was doing a lot of the time warp bending thing. I remember in, one of those trippy scenes, it zooms in on an eye that's on his, on his chest piece that kind of looked like the little capsule that, Doctor Strange kept the time stone in. So, and I think they even mentioned it at one point, or they said it, or they're like, is it Strange? And they're like, oh no, this is a new guy or something. That's what, Peter Parker said.
Aunt May says it to Spider-Man. She's like, is that Mr. Strange? And he's like, Dr. Strange, May. Right. And no, it's not.
Yeah. Yes.
I like that whole dynamic. So kind of going in more the beginning of the movie, I like the dynamic of May and Happy Hogan kind of having like this thing.
Little fling.
Yeah, it brought in like a really kind of fun element of like, because I think the thing about that makes a good Spider-Man is making sure that you remember he is a teenager, and that's why I think Tom Holland's the best Peter Parker we've had, because he does a really good job of being that teenager, and I think that was kind of the way to bring it down in this movie, because since the whole movie takes place in Europe, to make him feel very teenager-y, another way of doing that was having him kind of have that issue at home with like his aunt and now her new boyfriend kind of thing. Like, is that off and on thing? I like that dynamic of it in the movie.
I thought that was pretty fun too. Yeah, I mean, and there's a lot of those. You know, his thing with MJ and trying to combat the bullies. You know, the what Sky or what's that guy who's live streaming the whole time?
Oh, Flash.
Flash. Yeah.
I like that. I think watching this movie, like I get those. It's funny because those actors are like not that much younger. Like they're not 15 like they're supposed to be. They're like 20 something probably. But I like that the way they acted out like Peter and MJ and that whole little relationship. You can see that as an adult, look back and go, I remember feeling the way that he felt looking at like a high school crush. Like they did a really good job of portraying that on screen in a way that you can relate to. Like, I remember feeling the way that he felt. I remember you try and do those things of like, I have this plan and we're going on a trip. I'm gonna sit next to her, like all that stuff. And I thought that was really cool that they were able to do that and kind of bring it into a way of like, oh, I can relate to that. I remember being that when I was 15.
Oh,
I've
absolutely.
seen that Spider-Man.
The characters are very relatable. You know, I feel like a lot of times Hollywood will cast older actors, you know, just because they can do a better job. But I think they cast, you know, age appropriate, good actors, you know, in this movie. I think it's kind of interesting. I noticed in the first movie, Peter really wants to be an Avenger. You know, like that's his. He's like, oh, what can I do? Like Mr. Stark, like you know, how can I help? Like what? I want to be there. I want to do this. But then, you know, we leave Homecoming and he says, you know, I'm good. I got to figure this out. And then everything happens with, you know, Infinity War and then Endgame. And then here we are where he's been that hero. You know, he was that in that movie. And now he's like, whoa. I kind of want to go back to like pause. Like I just want to go on a vacation. Like it's a class field trip. That's like his vacation. So it kind of mirrored his arc in the first movie.
Yeah, I love that about his character because in the first one he's young, he's new, he's ready, he's never faced any dangers, so he's like ready to get going. And then when you face basically Thanos and you fight in that war that takes place at the end of Endgame, that I'm sure changes your point of view on wanting to be a hero. And not that I like that he didn't not want to be a hero. He just wanted to take a beat, like be slower. And like let the kind of progression of it come in, because it's that whole dynamic that at the beginning of the movie of everyone is acting Spider-Man. Are you the next Iron Man? Are you replacing Iron Man? And because they don't know he's 15,
right? So
they're asking a 15-year-old, like, are you gonna be the hero that if we get attacked again, are you gonna save us all? And that pressure just starts to kick in.
Yeah. And I mean, he's also, you know, grappling with the death of Tony. You know, like, arguably the closest person that he had to him at that time.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's just got to deal with that too. You know, like he's got a lot of weight on his shoulders in a lot of different, you know, directions, and then has to be this kind of pure symbol of hope. It's just it's way too much to juggle. You know, it's too much to multitask.
Yeah. So we have a twist at the end of who Nick Fury and Maria Hill are, and I just want to say, because I didn't notice anything wrong with them in the first time I watched this movie in theaters. Watching it again, there's so many signs that I'm like, that's not Nick Fury. Like, how did I not see that was not Nick Fury the first time around? You know what I mean? Like,
I saw it more with Kobe Smulders, because she didn't like say or do anything like the entire movie, and she was very vocal in, you know, a lot of her past appearances. Like, she's always got a quip. She's always talking to Nick about, you know, whatever else is going on, but she was like just stone cold in this movie. Yeah. So that was a weird sign for me. I didn't notice what jumped out at you for Nick Fury.
For me, it was one big scene that we have is so Peter's dodging Nick Fury's calls. He's ghosting Nick Fury, which you don't ghost Nick Fury.
Right.
So then
even fake Nick Fury knows you don't ghost Nick Fury.
Exactly. So then there's that scene where they're in I think they're in Italy at the beginning of the movie. The first destination when they go to Europe is Italy.
Yep.
And Nick Fury's waiting in his hotel room. He tranks Ned. Mm-hmm. And then the thing that all those people kept coming to the door and like disturbing them and almost walking in, the real Nick Fury would not have let anyone come
Right, that many people
close.
walk on his toes.
Yeah.
Or yeah.
Like, no one would have gotten that close to finding it. If the real Nick Fury would have definitely set a perimeter or got him somewhere that he knew no one would accidentally see him. I think that was one of the big things. I was like, I mean, because even when you see, like, an example of that is Winter Soldier. Because I think you and I did Winter Soldier together. That scene where Cap goes into his apartment and Fury's already in there.
Right.
Like,
yeah, after he, allegedly died. Or
yeah, and he's like, and Fury already knows it's bugged. He's already prepared for every scenario besides, obviously, the Winter Soldier coming at him. But, I mean, the real Nick Fury knew what to do and how to handle a situation of secretly going in somewhere. This one, obviously, was unprepared for 3 different people almost walking in on him.
Right. And I guess now that you mention that, too, another thing that I'm thinking back now, too, on is how he said at one point, he said, I blipped and then, I used to know everything. I used to be the, chain of command, and now I have no intel. And you're like,
Nick Fury would have intel.
You're the guy who knows everything always.
Like, yeah, he is
even if you were out for 5 years, you probably still have your fingers in a bunch of places. Like, you know what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. So another thing I've noticed, I don't know if you noticed it this time as well, as we're going through the airport and getting to Italy and all that stuff, there's so many shots of Jake Gyllenhaal and his team covertly watching Spider-Man. There's so many different shots. Like, Peter will walk by, like, be walking, and then at the very, like, end of the frame, like, if Peter's, like, walking over here, like, back here, you'll kind of see, like, Jake Gyllenhaal's head turn at the last second of the frame, and then
I didn't notice that. Yeah,
he's being watched a lot, and it's really creepy when you kind of start to notice. But it's really cool to look back and see the times that he's being watched by this team of people who then we see later on again. Like, there's a scene where he's walking.
Are you talking before the bar scene? Or
before?
After?
Yeah.
Before, okay, yeah. Because I had no idea.
Before even
honestly,
attack.
It felt like he was a very good guy the whole time. Like this, this was my first viewing. I mean, like I didn't know rewatching through, so I was along for the ride and spooked just like the rest of the audience when he's like, "We did it." I was like, "What?"
Oh, that was a great scene.
That's hilarious. Yeah.
But yeah, there's a scene where Peter's leaving this building before he goes and gets the necklace for MJ. And if you see right before the shot cuts away, Jake Gyllenhaal kind of turns and he's got a hat on. He's kind of like this. You see him for a second. Or that one of his like henchmen, there's a shot where Peter's walking with MJ next to the dock right when he's bought the necklace. And the end of the shot, right before it cuts away again, you see one of his henchmen kind of turn and look like kind of near the camera, like at Peter. And then it cuts away. Then he's attacked by the water monster. So they're making sure until that he's going to be near the water, because all of this was a ploy to get him Spider-Man there.
Right. Yeah. Because they'd all planned for that specific moment, and trying to convince him. I guess that's that's another telltale sign that Nick Fury isn't actually him, is because he would have probably caught on to mysterious shenanigans way before it escalated to the point at what you got to.
Yeah, and Maria Hill. Like, Maria Hill would have caught on to all of that too, because her job is to basically, if Nick Fury doesn't catch it, she has to catch it.
Right.
And they both missed all of it. And so that was, I think, another sign too of like you said, that can't be them. Like, they would not have missed this. But there is no movie if it really is them. So
yeah, I guess it's kind of ironic too that the fake Nick Fury, whether that's what he's supposed to say or whatever, he's trying to get Peter to work, and when he's literally just on his ship drinking a Mai Tai in front of a fake beach. Like, it's funny that he's like, all right, we want to get you going, no time for a vacation, while he's on vacation.
Yeah. And this also introduces the Stark glasses, those really dope looking sunglasses that Tony leaves for him, which my theory on that is, so if I know if people have probably seen the movie, but Peter gets the glasses and immediately almost kills one of his classmates by calling in a drone strike on him. But I don't think that the real Nick Fury would have given him the glasses. I think that Tony left them to the real Nick Fury, knowing like these should go to him when he's ready. I think that was another sign it was a fake Nick Fury, that the fake Nick Fury would give Peter glasses that could call in a fucking drone strike on another student.
Like, with no like safety or anything.
Like, nothing to when he got the go suit, against it.
He had like a training mode,
Exactly.
He broke through that, but yeah, you're right. He was just kind of given this unlimited power, and Mysterio
Yeah.
kind of caught on to that and manipulated it in his favor.
Yeah.
That was the glasses were fun though. It was definitely I think a callback to that training suit scene where he's like, "Ooh, what can I do? What is this thing?" Where he's just seeing what this new technology is all about.
Yeah, I mean,
when I like when Flash stole his glasses and he just decks him.
Yeah.
He's
and
like,
no,
no,
goes like,
I
did
really
you punch Flash? He's like, what? No.
Yeah.
This movie just brought in, I think, a lot of fun things. I like the high school dynamic. I like the quirky, weird high school teachers. JB Smoove playing, I don't know, the teacher, Mr. Dell. And then Martin Starr making his triumphant return to the MCU as Mr. Harrington, who's just the weird, lonely guy. Who I think my favorite line he has in the movie is when he's like, "Did I tell you my wife pretend to blip?" He's like, "We had a funeral and everything. She ran away with her whatever instructor."
He's like, "Well, no, it was a real funeral, but she wasn't actually dead." So
he's such a sad character.
He's just very happy-go-lucky, but he's very unlucky. That camera where he's setting up the selfie and then falls into the canal. And then miraculously all these strings are pulled for this amazing field trip. It was very, very similar. I felt like to Homecoming also in that aspect. They're on a class field trip. There happens to be a bad guy that's in the exact same area. Peter keeps disappearing. It's very weird. Where is Peter? But Spider-Man's here, or Night Monkey.
Night Monkey. Yeah, they call him Night Monkey.
Why was he in that suit for most of the movie? Why didn't he just whip out his? Because didn't he have his suit in his bag?
He did, but the thing was that he figured that if his class saw Spider-Man, because his class saw Spider-Man in DC when he was in DC. If his class happened to see Spider-Man just happened to be in Europe when Peter's in Europe, he thought maybe they'll catch on. So they gave him a different suit for him to maybe not be as apparent that it's Spider-Man.
That was weird though too. In the after that sequence with where they're fighting the fire guy, then they have it on the news afterwards, and they actually called him Night Monkey on the show. How did they? Ned just made that up on the spot in the.
Yeah, I think maybe because they were yelling.
Maybe they interviewed him afterwards, or
maybe
they had to give the media something.
Yeah, there's a shot of Ned's girlfriend yelling Night Monkey, Night Monkey. So maybe other people in the Ferris wheel heard it, and then they were interviewed, and then kind of got Yeah, I liked Ned and that girl and his girlfriend were a really funny dynamic too. They met on the plane, dated.
Coming, babe.
Yeah, only date a hard in love dating for 3 days, and then they're like, we grew apart, and then that was the end of it.
Yeah,
it was great.
It was pretty funny, especially because he was on his whole solo bachelor mission. When they're on the bus, waiting to leave, and then of course he gets a girlfriend before Peter does, and Peter had this whole six-step plan. He was ready to go. He had a necklace. He had everything he needed. Sniped him.
Yeah, I like that. I love Ned being his man in the chair. I think Ned is a great character. I think Jacob Batalon's a great actor. Yep. And it's gonna be interesting to see where his character goes too, because I think he could, if they do grown up Peter Parker, if they continue to Spider-Man the MCU, him being a full on man, what we call man in the chair, would be a really interesting thing to see, because he's obviously skilled at what he does. He could be super helpful for Spider-Man. We don't get to see it as much in this movie because he's more the love-struck teenager in this one, but I think
the kind of dopey. I love the scene where it's right after MJ, Peter's about to tell her that he likes her, and then she goes, "You're Spider-Man." He's like, "What?" Yeah. No. But then, right after that, he's in his costume, and Ned walks in on them two. Yeah. And he's like, "Oh, nice. That's the costume. Yep, for the prince's costume contest. Nice."
He did his best. He did his best.
Yeah. There were a lot of walking in on scenes in this movie.
Yeah.
A lot of people. It happened a lot.
I think that's kind of the fun, Spider-Man, he's, which I think is definitely, they're pushing the fact that he doesn't want his identity known for the ending, for the end credit scene where, spoilers, his identity is known. And I think that was maybe why they kept pushing that, so that he doesn't want his identity to be known for the end of the movie. When it is blown, then you're it's an even bigger reveal, because now you're oh, the whole movie he was trying not to get it blown because people kept walking in on him, all this stuff maybe.
Right. Yeah, it's funny too that his identity is it means so much more to him than even saving a place in his suit. He'd rather do it without his suit just to protect like his identity, and I think
Yeah.
that's really cool. Like that's something that he holds on to and eventually kind of blows up at the
Yeah.
very end of the movie. But
Yeah, I think he's the only character in this MCU that his true identity is not known, because obviously everyone knows Captain America, Steve Rogers, Thor is Thor. We see in the first Iron Man that Tony says he's Iron Man. So
right.
I think Peter is the only one that the world doesn't know who he really is, which is interesting.
I think you're right. Yeah, it's yeah, it is weird. I think he doesn't want. I think he likes that secrecy too.
Yeah.
I think it's a very kind of young. I remember being like, ooh, nobody knows like what I'm doing. Ooh, I'm in a new cool jacket,
Yeah.
or like, ooh, I just made up this new little hip move. It's a very
Teenager,
like young, teenager-y thing to
Yeah.
have this kind of secret identity that it's not about saving the world and taking off his mask. Like he didn't even want to talk into the microphone during like his
Yeah.
during the thanks thing. He's like, oh, yep, great, see ya.
Yeah, that was
It's
great.
like, thanks so much. Yeah, and then it immediately gets bombarded by the media after that, and he's like, I just want to be a kid. Like I just want to go on a field trip and maybe kiss the girl that I like.
Yeah. That was his whole goal. And he even tells Mysterio several times, like, that's all I want. That's all I want to do is kiss the girl that I like, tell her that I like her, and just be a teenager. And obviously Mysterio just uses that against him by pushing him
Right.
farther and farther into, like, that's what you should be doing. You're not the next Iron Man. You'll never be the next Iron Man. Like, just pushing
Right.
that on him, like, over and over again.
I'll give you 50-50. You're pretty awkward.
Yeah. They built up a good
That's funny.
friendship, which was obviously fake.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I think just going on to Jake Gyllenhaal, I think that we're kind of going out of order, but I don't really care. This bar scene when you figure out that Mysterio's a bad guy, we were talking about that just like earlier. I love that scene where it's the reveal and Jake Gyllenhaal goes from like this serious hero to he's like, I think we did it. Like I love that like change where all of a sudden he's just like dark. He did that so well, so fast. Of like the hero to the villain, just like you just see it in his eyes. You're like, oh, even before he says anything, you're like, something's up with this dude.
Right. I like too though how he didn't turn like dark. It was like we got it. And then everything else like fades around him or something, and then all the people come out of the woodwork, and he's got little minions in the corner. It's like they're all there. It was very theatrical. That's the best way I can describe that scene. I mean, they were like toasting. He's like, I don't want to toast. Okay, speech.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a very awesome scene.
But can I say my favorite part of this movie is the revival of, I think, probably the greatest line of our friend group when we get to see the character and flashback to Iron Man 1 that Tony Stark was able to build this in a cave with a box of scraps.
I was like, yes, it's him.
I remember Matt
triumphant
texted
return.
when Matt watched this movie and he texted me. He's like, dude, that line is in the movie. And I was like, it's the greatest line. So for anyone
It's
that
the same
doesn't-
actor, presumably, right?
It's the same actor. It's exactly the same actor.
Yeah.
For anyone that doesn't know, because you guys wouldn't know, in our group, we have for a while our group text was called Tony Stark was able to build this in a cave with a box of scraps. I don't know why we all just latched onto this line, but we all find it hilarious.
I was like, oh, no way. Yeah,
It was great.
It was really funny too to see like a callback to Iron Man 1.
Yeah.
Just to kind of get perspective on, how far we've come. And to see him back here, same guy, was kind of working behind the scenes the whole time. And then were there I meant to ask you, were there ever any allusions in Civil War that I didn't pick up on to Jake Gyllenhaal's role in this movie, or just that character in general? So
No.
all of that like flashback stuff was made up
Yeah.
in this movie for this purpose.
Yeah, if you watch Civil War again, he's not on the back, like, because in the Civil War, because he has that flashback. He created the
Bars
was it
for-
Bart? Yeah, in Civil War, that scene where he recreates Tony's family. When he walks off stage, Jake Gyllenhaal's not there. Like that was all made up
Right.
for this movie, pretty much. We're supposed to assume, I think, that he left out of anger before Tony walked off stage.
Mm-hmm.
Would be my guess, because he was pissed that obviously Tony named his life's work Barf. But yeah, I think we're supposed to. But there's no you never see him in that movie at all.
Tony's got bad luck with working with people and then them turning on him, like Aldrich Killian in Iron Man 3, who was like going to talk to him and then didn't, and then it's going to come back now. And here he takes Jake Gyllenhaal's technology. He comes back and tries to thwart it using Stark's technology against what he wanted.
So since Mysterio's whole team is people who Tony wronged, or they felt were wronged, they were wronged by Tony. The only one I don't get is the guy who gets yelled at by Obadiah Stane, that line that we were talking about, Tony Stark was able to build this in a cave. Why is he so pissed at Tony when he was mostly berated by Obadiah? Like, I want to... That's my only plot hole with that group of people, is like, why is he so angry at Tony when Tony wasn't the
never Tony's fault.
Yeah. Like,
I don't know, maybe it might have just been something... Yeah, probably something random. They did not explain that at all, though.
Yeah.
Probably just something random, a random parting of ways, later on.
Yeah, I want to know what that call was. Because I'm sure they made a phone call to him and be like, hey, remember us from 2008 when we made Iron Man? Like, we want you to come back for a movie all these years later and play the same character. Like, I've never looked at that dude. I don't know if he's been working. If he hasn't, that was probably the best phone call of his life.
It's probably a one-hit wonder, man. I mean, that scene is infamous, especially for us. It will never die. Like,
it will never die. That is art in its truest form. Is that line that Jeff Bridges' best acting came from yelling that Tony Stark was able to build this in a cave with a box of scraps. I think we can all agree on that.
Masterpiece.
So I think the big part of this movie that I think is important is after this scene, we have Mysterio, who now we're starting to learn his master plan, and Peter figures out, with the help of MJ, who in the big fight, finds that projector, and Peter's able to, and her and Peter are able to put it together that Mysterio's the bad guy. And then we have that, I think my favorite scene in this movie is Peter goes to confront Mysterio, and Mysterio throws him into this. Like, did you ever play the Arkham Knight games, Batman games?
Probably just like the trial at, or Best Buy.
Okay, so there's a scene.
Never delved into them.
There's a scene where Scarecrow in the game sprays you with the Scarecrow like gas, and you literally have a scene that's exactly the scenes that Mysterio did to Peter, of like these hallucination, chaotic scenes. And it was like amazingly beat for beat, but such a crazy, cool, dark, fun to watch scene when Mysterio starts messing with Peter with the projections and throwing him around, making him see like Tony's tombstone, and he's jumping from suit to suit, and he's confusing him, and then he's all of a sudden Mysterio's pretending to be Nick Fury with the projectors, and he's like, "Who'd you tell?" And Peter's like, "I don't know he doesn't know what's going on anymore." That whole scene was fantastic.
I thought it was great. He wasn't initially going to confront him, though, right? He was trying to go find Nick Fury to tell him, right?
Yeah, he was trying to tell Fury.
And then Nick Fury ended up being fake.
Well, that Fury ended up being the real fake Fury in the beginning.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I believe... See, it's all trippy. You don't know what's real.
I know, yeah, because that building collapses. The only thing you know is real at the end is when they're outside and he gets blasted by the train.
Yeah.
But... yeah, I agree. That scene was awesome because it was very visceral and meaningful for Peter Parker. Like he goes through, like you said, all his old suits. He was even in the the sweatpants suit that he had.
Yeah.
Initially, and then he sees MJ right for a second, and then it looks like she's falling, and
it looks like he's killing her. Real. And then and he's like, "I know it's not real. I know it's not real." Then he's like, "Is it not real?" And then he grabs her, and then. It's like throwing him around, and he's beating him up, and then there's a moment. So there's a part where he throws him in like a graveyard, and he sees Tony's grave. When you first see the back of the tombstone, I thought it was going to be Uncle Ben.
Mm.
But I know that this universe never set that relationship up.
Right.
But I was hoping that they would do it still. Like maybe even Uncle Ben's like with that tombstone in the background or something, just to reference like. Because no matter what iteration of Spider-Man, even if you don't say it, Spider-Man is supposed to have loved Uncle Ben and been the reason that he died in Spider-Man's own mind. Not really, but he's always supposed to feel guilty for that death. And so I was hoping that they were going to bring that up, but I know that I feel like having Tony Stark and Peter feeling somewhat he shouldn't, but feeling guilty for Tony's death was, I think, a bigger hit. And I get why they used Tony's gravestone instead.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I think that would have
that
been
was a
cool.
creepy scene too, with like the zombie Iron Man crawling
Yeah,
out after that. Then all the spiders are, coming out
yeah.
of his face.
But I
It
think
was
you,
very felt very Doctor Strangey. A lot of those
yeah,
scenes, the mirror dimension,
yeah. I'll say I
as they
think you
call it.
used the best word for it, visceral. You There's so much in that scene that you're just like, oh my god, it's like an overload to the senses,
Hmm.
and you're just like, there's all this like emotional, like Spider-Man's just being hit left and right with just every physical and emotional beatdown that Mysterio can force upon him.
Right,
And
especially because you think initially that he's meeting with Nick Fury to
yeah,
stop this or set up some sort of attack or defense, I guess, whatever way you look at it, to try to
yeah,
get the technology back. He's like, I made a mistake, trying to fix it, but then he's just being played,
yeah,
and then you kind of, the floor just like leaves your feet, and you're just kind of left like, what? Like, where do I even go from here? I don't know where the ground is.
yeah. And now you're kind of wondering from then on, like, what's real? Because he's
Mhm.
creating people and things that are so lifelike with those projectors. Because now he has the glasses. I think we kind of jumped over that. Peter gives him the glasses that Tony gave him that have all the important stuff, and I think that can amplify
does.
those projections. Yeah,
Yes, yeah, or it just gives him so much more control.
yeah,
Yeah, over using them, but it clearly did take a lot of time to set them up and was very choreographed.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there's that scene with what the other guy from Iron Man 1, where they're setting up the whole projection in that warehouse. And he's like, run it back. I'm not a huge fan of this choreography, but we'll work on it. And he's like, double the damage, or like, obviously that stuff takes a lot of time, so he can't just go into the mirror dimension and then everything from there. It's all a projection that he has to set in motion. But it is very cool when you see those scenes come together.
Yeah, and I just like the whole like what's real, what's fake thing that we have going on for the rest of the movie, and then even when Peter wakes up in the Netherlands, which I love the portrayal of the Netherlands in this
They're
movie.
so nice.
Just the nicest people, the nicest place, which I'm sure is like probably got to be relatively true.
Yeah, they closed themselves back in jail. You guys like, hey, you guys good?
I like when he wakes up and like, we gave you a shirt because you look cold. He's like, oh, that's really nice of you guys.
He's like, and the other guy is like, can I borrow your phone? He's like, yeah, man, why not? Sure.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, take it.
Yeah.
And then I think you get this super emotional scene when he gets to talk to Happy of when Peter's like, I miss Tony, and I think one thing that bugged me about Tony, or I keep saying Tony, about Peter from the end of Endgame to this movie was, as a teenager, obviously it's not anything about him as a person, it's him as a teenager. Is that teenagers only think about the pain that they're feeling, and he kept thinking like, I miss Tony when he's talking to Tony's best friend, who's known him for God knows how long, who's loved Tony. I'm talking about Happy, but Peter was like, I miss him. And it's like, dude,
we all do.
As much as you miss him, like obviously Happy has to be hurting more than you do. It's not a competition, but still, like, think of Happy in this situation. I think that was one of the things that bugged me, but it can't bug me because he's a teenager, and that's good writing of it. That's how a teenager would think of, like, I'm hurting, because you don't really think of it till you're older to like, oh, but I can't be the only one hurting. So I like that.
And I know that Happy, knew that. And
Yeah.
I love that scene, especially in the plane where he starts messing around with the suit and he's like rebuilding one, and he kind of sees a little Tony in him, doing the whole arm thing.
The exact thing from Iron Man 1 when he gets the projection of the arm.
Right, super similar motions, and he looks over at Happy. He's like, "What?" He's like, "Nothing."
That was
just
great
like
scene.
a very nice little a little nod.
Yeah, I'm happy that people who were, because I mentioned on the Endgame episode with Dom and Grayson that when Tony died in Endgame, I know what that felt like because my favorite comic book hero is Wolverine, which I've told you before. So seeing Wolverine die in Logan, I was a little bit more prepared having my favorite hero be killed on screen to watch Tony be killed on screen. But I think it's nice for a lot of the Iron Man fans who got a little bit of closure watching this movie and kind of seeing the same thing Happy saw of like, okay, this character is kind of living on in this new character, and this person's kind of living on again. And I think that was a fun scene of seeing Peter, like you said, become a little bit of Tony Stark and having those tendencies and doing the same thing and kind of bringing that character forward even throughout different characters. If that makes sense. I don't know. I'm drinking.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. There was one scene too. I can't remember where it was, but somebody said or was it Edith or something that said like, even after Tony's dead, he's still around and he's still the best or something.
Yeah.
Like I can't remember exactly
It
what the
was
scene was or who said it.
even though he's not around, Tony loves acronyms because he named Edith like even dead I win or something like that or I
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah
I'm still the.
yeah I'm still even dead I'm the hero.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
that.
Which is funny because he's always still there. In Jarvis and
Yeah.
in or Edith, I guess now that Vision was the incarnation of Jarvis, but
Yeah,
Tony's still kicking.
yeah. I mean, this movie's proof that even without Tony Stark, this series can go on and make pretty fantastic movies that keep pushing forward even without, I think, the father of this whole thing, which is Tony Stark.
Right. Yeah, and you still have Thor. He's off world. He's doing something else. So the whole it was just a facade or just a story that there were multiple dimensions, right? And that Jake Gyllenhaal was from a different Earth, right?
I'm
Or
going
is
to talk
that
about that at the end. I'm going to talk about that at the end because
All right.
that ties into where I think this series is going to go. But what you're saying, Thor off-world, I don't think Thor was off-world. I think, or he might have been, but I think that this fake Nick Fury didn't know how to contact the other heroes. So his excuse was they're gone, off-world, busy. Because I don't think he knew... Because we talked a lot about the fake news. It's the Skrull from... what's it? Talos? From Captain Marvel. Being Nick Fury.
Right.
Pretending to be Nick Fury. In a good way. Nick Fury probably told him, like, go pretend to be me and just make sure nothing bad happens while I'm on vacation. And I like that. I feel like he didn't know how to contact the other Avengers because he's never met the other Avengers besides Captain Marvel. So I think that's why he was like off-world because he's like, shit, I don't know how to talk. I don't know how to get a hold of Thor.
Or he was just being cocky and he's like, no, we got this. Like we got Spider-Man here. We got this other guy, Mysterio. Like this guy looks dope. He knows what's going on. He like this is his whole show that he'll fill you in on everything that's going on.
Yeah. I think then we have our big fight. We have our big fight against what elemental was that supposed to be at the end? Was that just supposed to be the
I think
air
it was
one?
a conglomeration of all three of them. Didn't
okay.
The one of the teachers, not the main guy, but the other guy. He was like, oh man, it looks like fire, wind, and water all came together or something.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it was just like supposed to be a final, the final boss of all the elementals, or an entirely new entity.
Yeah, which I think it's crazy that we have this big fight, this big elemental, and Peter pretty much takes out the projection pretty quickly, and most of that fight is without the projection, just the drones going and wreaking havoc around London.
Yep.
I thought that was an interesting way of doing that fight.
Were those all Tony's drones? Because we've seen them before,
yeah.
Or we've seen drones before, right? I mean, I remember them like spelling something out in another movie.
Yeah, I think they were Stark. Well, I think that they were the same design because I think the point is that Mysterio, when he was working for Stark, created the type of drone that Tony then used. So I think Tony had drones that were his, but they looked the same because they were created by the same person. He then, after Mysterio was let go, he created new drones in the same style for his purposes.
Gotcha.
That's my guess. That's I comically incompetent. Who knows?
Yeah, that was a fun scene though when he goes flying head first into the projection and then he's on the inside and he's like, whoa, like I gotta be fighting, but this is awesome.
Yeah.
Like he's looking around, he's like, this is sweet.
Yeah, a new Spidey suit, which I think is probably my favorite suit that the
3D printed one
has. Yeah, that was dope.
Yeah,
that red and black with the fucking wings and shit. That was cool.
That looked so clean, and he's got that little. It seemed like a detonation device that he never used or something in the middle, like the spider logo.
Yeah, that was something. I liked his mini parachute that just didn't. Yep. Just slowed him down.
Just like slowed him down. Yeah. It was fun that he like kind of did that on the go too. Like he was just he just engineered. He's like, ooh, what if I got this? What if I did this?
Yeah.
Ooh, I love Led Zeppelin.
Yeah, it's AC/DC. He's like, I love Led Zeppelin, and you're just like, oh, I don't know.
Kid.
He's just a child. You forget that he's a kid. He's supposed to be 15 years old, and I say this as I'm approaching 30. I'm just like, oh, kid.
Yeah, the fight scene was awesome. I thought it was great. I loved Mysterio in the bridge, kind of remotely controlling it, and watching from a distance. He's being his own man in the chair. We've seen that a lot of times. It's a very common theme. I feel like in Marvel is just either like you not actually being there. We saw Tony a couple times. He's not in his suit, but his suit is there as if it was him. In this movie, Nick Fury, he's not Nick Fury. It's a shapeshifter, or a shapeshifter, whatever. It's a tongue twister.
Oh, I love it.
But yeah, it's a very interesting thing, especially with you don't really know what's real and what's not with the projections. It's everything you can't really trust. You have to just believe in the hero. Like Peter Parker is pretty much the only person who was never anybody else besides Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So just identities and
Yeah, and I like the fight where or the part of the fight where you get to see like Happy Hogan and all them like confessing things because they think they're about to die, and Happy's like, "I'm in love with Spider-Man's aunt." It's like, and Nels kind of look at him. It was a fun fight. It's a fun movie. It's not very intense. Like you're not like on the edge of your seat, but you're having fun like the whole time watching it. Except I think because I want to talk a lot about where we think the series is going to go. So I think I'm kind of moving to end credit scenes unless there's something else you really want to talk about.
No, I mean the movie wrapped up, pretty nicely right at the end of that. Yeah. It's cleanly until the end credit scene. Like it feels fine, which I was confused about too because it didn't really feel like it was going to go anywhere. After that, it just felt like he was going to kind of just go back to doing his neighborhood friendly thing, and it said he would call Nick Fury when he wanted to, and he's like, "Don't ghost me," like that. Yeah, it just ended really nicely.
It did, and Peter and MJ together, and now they're dating, like a really cute thing of like, oh, this is fun. But then we get to our end credit scene where Peter drops MJ off. They're hanging out. He just was swinging with her on the webs.
It's basically like an extended version of the end of the movie, right? I mean,
yeah, exactly. Super fun scene. I love that scene. I love when Peter's swinging around New York. That to me felt the most Spider-Man we've ever gotten in a movie. That he's taking selfies, he's swinging through there. That was, I think, the coolest part for me. That was like, this is Spider-Man. Yeah, like this is Spider-Man. This is what I wanted the whole time. And I think for me, I loved the whole movie, but I think the movie was lacking something for me. And I think I figured it out in that end of the movie when he's swinging around New York, texting and taking selfies. I was like, Spider-Man. I was missing like Spider-Man because you don't really get
just beating up thugs in an alley or like sticking people with webs to walls. It was a very Peter Parker movie.
Yeah, I loved seeing like that Spider-Man, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man at the end, and he drops off MJ, and then there's a news alert with I think the only person on Earth who could ever play J. Jonah Jameson, J.K. Simmons, portraying the character again from the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. There's nobody else on this planet who could portray J. Jonah Jameson at this point. I mean, he's voiced him in the cartoons. He's played him in live action. His voice, his look, everything is perfect. And he shows the newsreel of Mysterio's version of what happened, of that Peter called the execution order by using
I knew something was up too when he said that because like the way he's like execute them all. Like that's not what you say when you're canceling a drone strike on London. You say stop it. Like I don't want anything. Like cancel it.
Well, I think I think Mysterio set up Edith to say the word specifically to say, do you want to execute all of the commands? So when he said execute them all, I think that he knew that in a panic he would copy what she said. So I think Mysterio set up exactly to say that in case
trying to make it sound like I think Coolsville sucks.
Exactly. There's this full-on Scooby-Doo 2 Monsters Unleashed moment where Heather Jasper Howe makes Fred seem like he thinks Coolsville sucks. And just a phenomenal bit there. And then at the end when Mysterio's like, Spider-Man's real name is, and it cuts out, and you're kind of sitting there in the theater like, oh, and he's like, Spider-Man's name is Peter Parker. Then Peter's face goes up, and Peter goes, what the fuck? And then it cuts out.
Because it's everything was going great. He saved the world. Mysterio's donezoed, and then everything just blows up in like 1 second. Like his whole world, his identity, the one thing that he had been trying to protect this whole time, gone.
That's the only thing I think I really hate about this movie and it's not the movie itself. I'm angry that I don't get to know what happens because the whole world now knows Peter Parker Spider-Man, and now Marvel's like, we'll have a movie where we'll show you what happens later, and then COVID hit. It's like, now we don't know. when are we gonna know when the fuck this is gonna pan out? Because it hurts
Right.
me to watch this movie because I know I need to know. I don't do
Yeah.
well in my life with waiting, and I don't want to wait.
I was a very I thought it was kind of a call to Iron Man 1, and we talked about this a second ago, when Tony has that press conference at the end and he goes,
Yeah.
"Truth is, I am Iron Man." And in that instance, we're like, "Oh shit." Like
Yeah.
he's ready to go, like he's embracing it. It's going to be insane. Like we're excited. We're not apprehensive as we are now, where his identity being known and linked to, possibly, putting on this show and being the one at fault for this whole thing. We're nervous. We're like,
Yeah.
oh crap, the world knows. It's like it's a very weird flip from that Tony Stark is Iron Man to oh crap, it's not Peter, that's somebody else, dude. Yeah, they put up his photo like at the end. They're like, got him.
You're just sitting there, you're like, no! And then the credits roll, and you're like, oh my god, what's about to happen?
Yep.
And then a post-credit scene of Fury and Maria Hill. Now you know it's the Skrulls. It's Talos and his wife were Nick Fury and Maria Hill the whole time. And Nick Fury was just on vacation on the Skrull ship, hanging out, like you said, on a fake beach, drinking a Mai Tai, just chilling.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah. It was a funny scene too. I kind of liked it though to know that that Nick Fury's like there, like he's working. He seemed off in the movie, but then you're like, oh, that's why, because it wasn't actually him. Like he had bigger things to bigger fish to fry.
Yeah, and just watching it again, you see it so much more. Like that's not Nick Fury. Nick Fury would.
I'm gonna have to watch it again though. But
yeah, just like watch it again with that in mind, because you're gonna see. There's so many things you're gonna go, see he wouldn't do that. Like just little things like that doesn't make sense.
The only time I caught on to that was the when he was in the illusion the first time, and then right at the end when Mysterio gets him to confess who else he told.
Yeah,
I was like, no way, dude! Like, come on, don't tell him. Like, that's obviously not him.
Yeah,
but then it was the not him, not him.
The not him. Yeah,
it was a projection of the fake version of him.
We got some Inception layers going on in this movie.
Yes.
But before
I thought it was great though. Yeah, it was a fun ending too, and then also looks like there's more to come.
Oh yeah, a lot more to come, which is why like the end. Before we go, I want to know where you think this series is going to go. What do you think the Marvel Cinematic Universe has in store for that? Using what we saw in this movie, what do you think they have in store for us?
It's such a hard question to answer because I think they could go in any number of directions.
Yeah.
I think now that this kind of wave of happy-go-lucky, family-friendly is kind of come to an end. Now we can dive into a lot of maybe darker or more confusing or more obscure characters. Now that all the A-listers are out of the way, sure they'll make appearances I think here and there, but I think we might even see more TV show spin-offs. Not like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I feel like that was still very PC, very family friendly. But maybe something on HBO or something, a Daredevil, type scenario. I don't know. I know they're going to keep with the blockbusters because they're so successful. People still want to see them. Plus, there's a lot of story to still be told. Like you said, all these other movies that are coming out, Black Panther 2, Spider-Man 3 will eventually come out, Black Widow. We'll get a lot of prequels, ends. But I do think that they're going to start bringing more of the universe, to light.
Okay. Yeah, I think for me, I have a bunch of theories of what's going to happen. I think, it's been rumored that we're going to have Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield make appearances in the next Spider-Man movie. My guess, and this is not spoilers because this is not confirmed anyway, but I think what's going to happen is we're going to have WandaVision, and I think WandaVision is going to be Wanda basically losing it after losing Vision and starting to rip open the multiverse, which is why we have all those different versions of her in that show we see in the trailer. And I think Multiverse of Madness, because they said Multiverse of Madness takes place within, like, right after WandaVision. I think Multiverse of Madness is dealing with Wanda in her state ripping open the multiverse. And Doctor Strange is the only one that can deal with it, so he goes to deal with it, but then some things get through, which are going to be Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield Spider-Mans. And I think that is what's going to roll into Spider-Man 3 as having those characters back, is after Wanda ripping open the multiverse and Doctor Strange trying to deal with it. That's my guess. I don't know, but that's kind of like the theory I have going right now.
I think that'd be a great segue too, especially with how kind of candid Marvel is with reusing not reusing actors, but having little cameo appearances
Yeah.
and little nods to past movies, or I mean, the Incredible Hulk was full of those.
Yeah.
Like it had actors from the the animated series, people who did the voices, like the or Lou Ferrigno was in it, for a
Yeah.
second. Like I really see them doing that. Yeah, I think you're spot on with that, and would tie perfectly into a live action, into the multiverse.
Yeah. I think it would be interesting to see. I hope they do something like that and kind of just blow this universe wide open, because they can, if they do something like that, they can go forever. They will never have to stop, which a lot of people are going to love, and I think Marvel's going to love making all that money for the people like us who are going to go see it and
Absolutely.
spend our money on it and never stop watching it.
Yeah, and I think they are going to bring other characters in too, because it's getting. We watched. I mean, you especially have watched all these in a very short amount of time. Right?
Yeah, yeah,
And this happened over the course of years, but I think it's kind of a closed chapter almost. The it's still going off what you think though too, with the universe kind of being blown wide open. I think that's exactly what's going to happen. I don't think we're going to keep seeing a bunch of we can only drag Iron Man out for so long. We love him.
yeah,
But I think that, and with the death of Tony Stark, that's kind of closing this chapter of the universe and starting, a new one with a lot of characters, coming with it.
yeah, definitely. I think move on to the beer now, if you're cool with that.
Cool. Yeah. Go ahead.
So to wrap out this MCU interview series, we're doing a beer called Personal Journey, which I think worked really well because I think Peter's on his own personal journey throughout this whole movie. Is by Chapman Brewing, which Chapman Brewing is in Old Town Orange in Orange County. I don't know if anyone knows where that is, right next to Chapman University. I think maybe a lot of people know where that is. Right off Cypress Street in Orange in California. And this beer is pretty outstanding. I mean, I poured it before Adam got into the Zoom call, and I drank half of it. Couldn't really stop myself. Chapman Brewing makes some of my favorite beers of all time. One of my favorites is called Social Butterfly. It's an apricot wheat beer. I highly recommend it if you ever get anything from Chapman Brewing. And this one was really good too. It's a pale ale and had Galaxy, Huel Melon, and Simcoe hops. It is the notes of tropical melon, and it says international. I don't know what that means. But it's
Maybe a type of hop.
Maybe a type of hop. Yeah, it's a 5.7 alcohol by volume, and just outstanding. I mean, Chapman Brewing makes some pretty phenomenal stuff. I'd highly recommend them if you live in Orange County. I think you might be able to get other places. I got this one at High Times, which I mentioned a bunch on the show before. They've given a lot of the beer for the show. So I'd highly recommend checking out Chapman Brewing if you ever get a chance. Like stuff, Cypress Street in Old Town Orange. Super great, super fantastic beer. And yeah, I think that wraps up the 23 movie MCU interview series. Adam, thank you for doing this whole thing, being on this show. I don't even know how many times throughout this Marvel series.
I probably like 80.
It feels like 80.
80.
It feels like it.
It's been awesome. I've loved going back through these, watching all the little, movies that I missed, along the way, and just to kind of see the entire arc from beginning to end. And especially in this kind of short amount of time,
yeah,
you can really see how much each movie plays on the previous and how much it alludes to the next one. And you really get this. It does come full circle once you kind of pick up on all the little things that kind of go over your head the first time.
Yeah, it's super nice to see. And I think just having, like you said, watched this so long. I mean, we watch this once a week from June to now, like watching these movies over and over again. I mean, it's nice to, as much as I love these movies, I'm a little happy it's done to move on. But I mean, it's nice to see it like I remember seeing it all in theaters as they came out, so it was interesting to see it one by one, like just so quickly after another. Like you said, you get to see that storyline go, and it's really been a lot of fun. But I'm excited to move on. So next week we are off, no episode this next Monday, but after that, the entire month of December is Dom, Grace, and I doing the Shrek quadrilogy. Complete left turn from Marvel. That is done purposefully just to try and get out of this kind of Marvel loop that we were in. And then after that, Adam, you're going to be back to do the Dark Knight trilogy with me.
I can't wait, man.
It's going to be good.
probably my favorite trilogy of all time.
Yeah,
It's
up there.
absolutely fantastic, and yeah, I can't wait. I mean, that I will tune in and check you guys on Shrek. That'll be sweet. I think yeah, like you said, a nice little departure for you.
Yeah, it's gonna be a nice little 180 there, which I think we really needed. And you're gonna be bringing some Colorado beers to the Batman trilogy.
I am. Yeah, I'm gonna be the one getting schwiggity wasted.
I'm excited. Yeah. I'm excited for you to expand because I try and support local breweries, but that for us that means South Orange County. So we don't expand. So I'm excited to get something new, some new stuff out here. So yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. Don't forget we're on Twitter and Instagram at ComicallyPod. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like, subscribe, all that junk that everyone asks you to do. Or just leave a comment of the week in the comments. That's all I really have to do. Do whatever you want to do, whatever makes you feel happy. And check us out. I just want to say again, no episode next week. Do not be waiting for an episode next week, but get ready for a whole month of Shrek and then a whole month of Batman. So, Adam, thank you again for being here and doing this with me.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it going. Happy to close the chapter. Marvel's been awesome. Yeah.
All right, we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Bye.
Sounds good. Peace.